Right, let's do the thing, because the games journalists are at it again. And I've got a wonderful example for you that happened this week of basically how games journalism functions, why it's absolute cancer, and why all these people are pathetic hacks who have surrendered any desire to be good at their craft and be good journalists, and instead just want to treat their platforms as one big clubhouse that they can sort of selectively choose who comes in out of. It's the only power and influence they'll ever have in their otherwise meaningless lives, because when the publications that they invariably work for go bust, which is going to happen to a lot of them, all that influence, all that power, all that platform, it's all gone. No one's reading these people's articles for them. They have no brand value individually. Like, shit, even Jason Cryer can fucking, has managed to build up a reputation as a solid games journalist. It's really not a high bar to get over, frankly. But the reality is most of them are more content to just be a cool kid in their clubhouse than they are to be a real journalist and to create work of value. Also, it shows everything that we've talked about in the past, about how it's basically, I want to say cartel. That's not the appropriate word, because a cartel is, it implies power and influence these guys increasingly don't have. Equally, it's not a cabal. They're not anonymous. You just don't know who the fuck they are because their work is worthless. So, but it's the mechanics. It's the mechanics of how it works. That's super interesting, because there are a few things you have to know as a journalist when you pursue a story. And the first thing is that a story realistically has to be in the public interest. A story, if you're working on a story, has to have some value to the publication, in the sense that it really should be, all the stories I used to work on were all scoops. I'm not fucking rewriting someone else's news. It's maybe happened on one or two occasions, but in general, I'd be ashamed. I break stories. I don't rewrite someone else's stories. I might offer some opinion article about it, which has value because of my expertise and tenure in my particular industry. But the idea that, this person tweeted this is the news. It's like that, 8-year-olds could do this. Like, 8-year-olds could play at journalism doing that. But if you're doing that in your 20s to 30s, just fucking do us all a favor and quit. This industry ain't for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something else you must want to do, because you're wasting your time in this. So, let's start with it. And just let me show you the chain of how it works. Actually, bit of background. For those who were around in 2014 when it all kicked off in, the Vietnam of games journalism, Gamergate, which is one of the most lied about internet happenings. It probably is the most lied about internet happening of all time. It was basically a bunch of journalists got caught with their fucking pants down, in some cases literally, and it was something that had been stewing and brewing for at least 2 years prior, when we start seeing you all fucking, hey, this game's amazing and is sponsored by Mountain Dew, just like this segment. And it was games journalism that had all the disclosure issues, all the relations. It was lagging behind real journalism. Not by much, because when Obama was president, there was a similar incident where a bunch of political journalists across not even across the spectrum, because there is no spectrum anymore, but a bunch of journalists that worked at different publications were communicating privately in via emails and Google groups on what stories they were going to cover and how they were going to cover them. They colluded to make sure all their coverage was the same. When it came out in 2014, it was called Game Journo Pros. Somebody leaked parts of the emails, and it showed senior editors at publication telling any writer that objected to a line of coverage they would make their careers very difficult for them if they continued to do that. This, by the way, more than anything Zoe Quinn wants to do in her spare time, was the crux of what Gamergate was about. And you can say it was the Five Guys fucking post all you want, but it wasn't. And people who were there know that, and you can't gaslight them different, right? It was just a very loud, straw we all heard breaking a camel's back at a time when people were already outraged at how the games press was operating. Anyone who tells you different, straight up lying to you. Anyone who tells you it was like a carefully coordinated harassment campaign. Remember, the Gamergate hashtag was investigated by the FBI. There's no hierarchical structure to it. It's a hashtag on social media. So, Game Journal Pros was what they used to coordinate essentially attacks against people they believe were attacking them, because journalists will never accept personal accountability for their behaviour. What a journalist does, if you criticise a journalist, is they abuse their platform to basically ruin your life. That's how it works now. Used to be back in the day, if you were considered to be violating journalistic ethics, the concept of revenge journalism was also one of those unethical practices that you weren't supposed to engage in. Now all there is, in games journalism especially, is revenge journalism. They target somebody that has either disagreed with them or criticised them, or someone they disagree with on a philosophical level, and they just leverage their platforms universally, all their platforms at once, to go after someone. And you would go, how do they manage that? Because that's like some insane, it must be an insane, crazy coincidence to be able to manage it, right? Well, no, it's not an insane, crazy coincidence. It's manufactured, because the Games Journal Pros group never went away. It never went away. They never stopped doing it. It's just they're not doing it in like Google groups anymore. They're on Slacks. They're on Discords. Same people, same publications, all colluding, all sharing information, all sharing targets. And if they want to deny that, I mean, first of all, I know some of the people in those groups, so I know it. I know they exist. You can't gaslight me, right? How do you think I know that you were fucking archiving my tweets and coming after me? You fucking losers. And how did that work out? I made a fucking video basically highlighting the thing that was going to be your big expose. Richard Lewis wrote saucy chapters in a novel 10 years ago. Yeah, how did that work? How did it work when my lawyers even had your archives took down for violation of copyright? How's that hit piece coming along, kids? Maybe next time, eh? So, they think they're fucking smart, but they ain't. Right? They're pathetic. And so, and even when they're connected and working together, they're so transparent and so stupid. And it's the same thing every time. So just remember, Game Journal Pros never went away. They don't even consider it unethical. Of course, it's grotesquely unethical if an editor for another publication bullies and threatens a journalist at another publication, saying, if you ever go into the freelance pool, I won't be hiring you, and I'll make your life very, very difficult. Might even publicly call you out and ruin your life if you don't toe the line with our coverage. Of course, this is a grotesque, unethical concern, but that's just another day in games journalism, by the way. That's what they do. That's why so many people fucking quit and go and do something worthwhile. Well, the people who can. The rest of the people who only have the treehouse, this is what they do. So you take a tweet, right? This is the mechanics of how games journalism works these days. You take a tweet, right? And typically it'll be something a absolutely shitty no-name freelancer has noticed. Like Liam Robertson, a.k.a. Dr. Cupcakes. I uncover lost games and other scoops. Never heard of you. Never hear of you again. This was your moment. And so they did a tweet. I know this is just shocking, but the lead designer of Hogwarts Legacy is Troy Leavitt, a far-right YouTuber who used to make anti-feminism and pro-Gamergate vids. And then he took a little screenshot, right? And you can have a look at that, probably, right? Let's have a look at some of these outrageous titles. Title 2, net neutrality repealed. Wow, how far right? It's okay to be a gamer. Holy shit. This guy's like Goebbels. The injustice of social justice. Oh, no! He's criticised American liberal social justice principles. He must be opposed to any form of equality for marginalised groups. This was then followed up hilariously. I just want to make something else clear. I'm not trying to cancel anyone. I just wanted to let people know this because I feel like it's something people might like to know before deciding whether to support this project. This is all public info and there for anyone to find. Right? Now, I don't even watch this cunt's videos. I've seen 2 of his videos. Right? I just know that these are not outrageous extremist videos. You know, these are not far-right videos. There's probably some overlap with my own thoughts on some of these, and probably a ton that I find cringe and really fucking stupid. Because as I said earlier, if you are a culture war fucking warrior, sort your life out. But I'm a journalist. Right? And so I care about the ever-lowering standards of journalism. Because it used to be 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd tell people I was a journalist and I would do it with like a sense of pride. Now I just don't tell them what I do because you cunts have made our practice absolutely shameful to the public, and rightly so. So, can you explain to me if games journalism isn't just a cliquey load of nonsense? So this is just some shitty freelancer, right? Posting a tweet that's completely innocuous. Man-made videos I disagree with. That's your big takeaway headline, by the way. PC Gamer, Stephen Mesner. I am so dumbfounded that Troy Levitt's defense for why gaming doesn't have a racism problem in his "it's okay to be a gamer" video is that Nintendo and Sony are Japanese. Don't get me wrong, I expected the video to be cringy and stupid. I just didn't expect it to be that stupid. Now, I won't get into the ins and outs of how, like, data doesn't... There's no studies that sort of verify this ideas that, like, gamers are one, like, homogenous, far-right, racist group that, like, is walking lockstep in jackboots to stop women and other and minority groups, different races and different sexualities and trans people and all that. You know, there's no data to substantiate this, but it's what they say is real because they're grifters and it needs to be real for the grift to continue. So, whatever. So it goes. That's PC Gamer, top-level publication. Then, Nathan Grayson tweeting about it almost immediately, like they all had a heads up, like they all knew. Here he is, and you'll notice he's responding to a Kotaku article. Because, of course, right, this is newsworthy, isn't it? Man-made videos I disagree with. It's got to be newsworthy. So, he says, at the very least... this functions as a look at the inner machinations of big companies when it comes to far-right extremism, Gamergate, etc. They try to feign ignorance when they really step in it, CTHQ going on 8chan. But the truth is that they know, and they just don't care. Now, far be it from me to take lessons on morality from a journalist that slept with a subject, didn't disclose it, went for expensive, fancy fucking dinners with games development companies and would then write articles about their games. You know, maybe you're not the most qualified. In fact, in a lot of ways, you're patient zero for the great gaming decline, and you should have been fired years ago if Stephen Totilo didn't need you at fucking Kotaku, because for whatever vague reason, you've got a little fucking army, a little enclave of idiots that think your work has any fucking value when it's just garbage. You know, you like a self-respecting editor would have put you out to fucking pasture a long time ago. Let's also just remind ourselves, Nathan Grayson is the shit-hot, crackpot, legendary journalist that got fucking suckered by the Ellygate story. He is a guy who wrote an article decrying harassment of someone who didn't exist publicly. You know, at that point, just retire for your own good. How the fuck can anyone take your work seriously ever again? You know what I mean? Like, do let me know when I've wrote a fucking expose on an attack against an imaginary character and then try to walk away and say, as you did, Nathan, but yeah, the problem was the story was developing at the time. Yeah, so you just decided to go with the first fucking bullshit that came in your brain that just so happened to prop up your fucking ongoing narrative. Weird how that works, isn't it? Most of us, real journalists, by the way, we have these things called, like, standards, and so what we do is we try and find out the truth before we put our motherfucking name on it. But as as I said, considering your content to dip your wick in someone for a fucking story, I don't think really you probably even give a fuck. You probably think you did nothing wrong. Right. So Kotaku come knocking, because of course they do. Big news for Kotaku. And this was just a tweet they put out there. Hogwarts Legacy lead designer used to run anti-social justice YouTube channel. Big news, big news. Because if you don't worship at the Church of Woke, you're not allowed. You can't do anything anymore. Talent, skill set, all of that, all irrelevant now. You must fucking preach and worship and shit. You know, be woke or be nothing. Essentially, is the American mantra. So. This was written by Ian Walker over at Kotaku. Another aspect of this that you guys need to know about is a lot of these people only have the clique. They only have the cult. They only have the clubhouse. And they only have the platform. As I say, Nuxt have got their own individual platforms. They have to leverage other people's platforms. They have to leverage other publications' platforms because they will be nothing when those publications go away. And Ian Walker is a guy who used to he was a guy who like harassed me insanely while I was at fucking E-League. Would constantly talk about the show, constantly talk about me, constantly talk about why E-League needs to fire me. And it's, you know, I looked into it and I think I gave him both barrels on Twitter once. But when I started asking around, he was just a running joke in the FGC, just a lonely, pitiful character. And so this is the other thing they do. It's quite sad. There are people who gravitate towards these groups thinking that they're going to love them, they're going to respect them, it's going to be good for their careers. And they sit in their Slack group and go, well, I'd write about it. And again, I know because I've seen these logs. I'd write about it, but I wrote that story last week and I got harassed. And they try and basically pressure some of the lesser known people or people who don't have the benefits of full-time salaries or whatever it is. They try and pressure them into writing the hit pieces. And sometimes it's not even pressure. These people just want to do it to fit in. Imagine that. I'm talking about journalism here, by the way, guys. A supposedly serious profession. It's run like a fucking high school cafeteria. Doesn't that fucking disgust you? It should. It disgusts me. So, on it goes. Then, what happens next? Well, once Kotaku's gone, who's next to the party? It has to be Fanbyte. Fanbyte, another enclave of all the loser journalists. The worst thing about Fanbyte is, if you end up writing at Fanbyte, this is like the worst indictment. Fanbyte's all the journalists that couldn't even succeed in fucking games journalism. It's absolutely god-awful. I think it's also funded with Chinese money, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, these guys basically had to go next because, you know, if Kotaku falls in line, it's fine. I also have complained to these guys about some of the conduct of their journalists. They didn't even credit me with a response. They apparently think it's acceptable for their employees to lie publicly about a public figure having sex with someone that they didn't have sex with. They're perfectly fine with it. They're perfectly fine with that, by the way. They think that type of defamation is just par for the course, just another day. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the publication and why you've never heard of them. But anyway, a lead designer on the upcoming Harry Potter RPG dedicated his YouTube channel to anti-social justice politics, calling Gamergate a consumer-led revolt against the religion of identity politics that was started by the press's arrogance. Now, first of all, no lies detected in that statement. That's probably the most truthful thing you ever wrote, and you're quoting somebody else. And second of all, again, why is this news? Why is this news, guys? Like, can anyone tell me why this is in the public interest to know that a guy who is a non-public facing designer of a video game used to do YouTube videos 4 years ago that these guys don't like? Anybody know? Well, it's not just newsworthy. At a time when we're looking at all these problems, Chinese censorship in video games, potential match fixing in esports, you know, all Riot Games with another lawsuit, right, of allegations of women abuse and them cynically manipulating contract law to try and force people into No, we're not tackling any of that. We're not tackling any of that. You know why? These guys can't tackle that. The only reason they write this shit is because, like I say, it makes them feel important. They always talk about punching up. These guys can't fucking punch up. They can't punch up. They can't punch down. They got no punch at all. You know, it's just tragic. All those big stories to sink your teeth into, and you've got no self-respect, and this is what you write about instead. How fucking embarrassing. Anyway. So, but at this point, it's reached critical mass. This is the story they're all going to talk about this week. It's the big news story for them because they genuinely believe they can affect some change about it and get this guy fired. And he must be fired, and he must be punished, and he must be tortured. Why? Because what he said in his videos were really, really bad and wouldn't fly in polite society? No, because he said games journalists are corrupt hacks. That's what it all boils down to. It isn't even about principles or about social justice. What you'll find is, a lot of the time, social justice is just a cover for fucking absolutely abhorrent behaviour. Hogwarts Legacy lead designer has history of anti-social justice content. That's from Screen Rant. Of course, if Screen Rant goes, well, Game Rant has to go as well. So they go. What did you go with, Game Rant? Hogwarts Legacy designer draws criticism for past videos. Who's criticising him? Oh, that's right, the Enclave of Games journalists. Nobody of any importance or relevance whatsoever. Maybe some of your followers, maybe Reset Era. But otherwise, in general, no one gives a fuck because this is not a newsworthy story. So then we move on. This is the key part here. It's not enough to just say, guy made videos we don't like. He said social justice is a grift, or he said games journalists are liars. It's not just enough to lay that bare. That might make you think these people, these journalists, are actually abusing their platforms based on their personal axes to grind. You might see the truth. So what they then have to do is, we must escalate the smears. And let me just show you, it's the same every time. Here's how the smears escalate. They go from, oh, he's saying bad things, he doesn't agree with woke dogma, to he's far right, to he's racist, a Nazi, or alt-right, to what he is saying causes harm, to if these are the things he says, imagine what he does. It's the same pattern every time they set their attack dogs on you. It's the same. I know, I've been through it. I know, I watched you do it to Total Biscuit. It was lies then, it's lies now. You do it every fucking time, and it's pathetic and see-through, and people aren't going to fucking stand for it anymore. They're not going to tolerate it. PC Gamer. Right? PC Gamer. A publication, I don't know, 10 years ago I used to respect. Now, working out, what a joke. Oh, hang on. I've used the same link twice. Let me just get the right link. There you go. Hogwarts Legacy lead designer criticized for reactionary YouTube videos. Now, I've talked about this a lot, how Americans and their adherents just absolutely destroy language to the point where it's all meaningless. It's why you just shouldn't even get upset when they call you stuff like this anymore. It means nothing because they've made it farcical. They've made its use absolutely farcical. If you go and look at the definition of a reactionary is literally someone who opposes political or social progress or reform, such as having a negative attitude towards women's rights. It's also increasingly in the modern era linked to extremism, right? He's not a reactionary. He's not against political progress. He's not against women's rights. He's not against anyone's rights. He just doesn't believe, say, for example, some of the methods you want to use are the right ones. Now, we used to be able to have discussions like that 10 years ago, but you can't now. And that should be quite telling. So a publication like PC Gamer, right, and you'll notice not the writer who called him out on Twitter. That would show too much courage. Calling him a reactionary, right? Not a reactionary, not by any stripe. Then, again, we have to start parroting the lie, right? He's anti any form of social justice. Anti-progress, anti-reform, anti-women. That's over in PSU. Are you shocked by the number of articles about this completely mundane thing yet? Don't be. There's so many more. This is all they had to do. This was what was sent out in the Slack group. Harry Potter Hogwarts, that's GameSpot. Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy lead designer criticised for anti-SJW videos. The lead designer, a veteran of the games industry, has been under fire for his YouTube output, which praises Gamergate and condemns the Me Too movement. Doesn't tell the full story on the Me Too movement. Literally in the video about the Me Too movement, he says there was a bunch of people who got accused that didn't do anything, and we should probably be a bit mindful about that. And also, it's lost some of its meaning when Aziz Ansari's getting accused of being a Me Too because he was a shit date. Someone started crying and he called her a taxi. All valid viewpoints, in my opinion. Then we had VG 24/7. Right? Hogwarts Legacy lead designer used to run anti-feminist, anti-social justice YouTube channel. Right? Another article just has to come out. Then we go to Pink News. Let me just check on my... let me just see if this is acceptable. I never know what I'm going to get sometimes on that website with Twitch's policy. Well, anyway, My Pink News, I'll just read it to you. My Pink News. They said that he is a far-right... let me get the right quote. Yeah, far-right Harry Potter video game designer raged at feminists and social justice warriors on YouTube. If you watch his videos, there's no raging, there's no ranting. He's the most softly spoken guy that's ever put videos out like this. He makes Thunderfoot look like makes Thunderfoot look like Alex Jones. He's that fucking passive. That was My Pink News. Because again, super pressing matter for the gay community. Metro, the journalistic carrion, sifting through the internet for anything that gets impressions and then rewriting it. Absolute garbage. But because it's shared constantly. Hogwarts Legacy cursed. Our first J.K. Rowling said what she said, and now this. Why, God, why are we cursed? With new controversy from pro Gamergate lead designer. Why must it happen? COG connected. Hogwarts Legacy designer's past is coming back to haunt him. I wonder why. Could it be you cunts writing all these articles all the fucking time? Like, by the way, what are we up to? Are we on like 12 or 13 articles? Again, just remember, the big fucking story here is guy who works at video game studio made YouTube videos espousing opinions we don't like. That's it. That's the big news story in gaming, is it? That's the big news story. Then, boingboing.net, I'm sure anyone who's been to a fucking airport knows about them. Just another garbage journalism website. Fortunately, look at this. It's so old and shit, the website. It doesn't even fucking parse properly into a thing. They said lead developer on new Harry Potter game is Gamergator. He's a Gamergator. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Like, what is this imaginary made-up fucking term, Gamergator? What even is that? What is the criteria for that? Who is one? How do you be one? What does that mean? And then, just to let you know, as I said, it'll never stop. It can't stop there. We then have to go to the outrageous conclusion, and there it is. Hogwarts Legacy designer comes under fire for alt-right YouTube channel. This is in CBR.com. Alt-right. Okay? So, of course, we all know the alt-right is a branch off of extreme nationalists that believe in the creation of an ethno-state and other fucking racist principles. He said, I think the games journalist press lies. Alt-right, he's alt-right. These people are fucking shameless. These people are shameless. And the incredible thing is, go talk to a serious defamation journalist, a defamation lawyer, and you know what they tell you? Journalists have misused the term alt-right so much, no one knows what it means, therefore applying a standard of defamation to it can't really be done. It's just that used to go and you end up in mad situations where this guy who works at a grocery store's alt-right, apparently, the president's alt-right, everyone's alt-right. Now, when you hit a certain point, I think once you go past 14 games articles about a particular topic, obviously Saint Anita has to turn up and give her 2 cents, right? And because the guy said, well, when I took the job, I told him, oh, I used to do this YouTube channel and I've said these things in the past, right? And they still hired me and said it wouldn't be a problem, right? Anita Sarkeesian rears up like the Kraken and says, I'm happy to say that even though I disclosed my hateful, misogynistic and regressive YouTube channel at Warner Brother Games, it didn't appear to be an issue for them. And I get to continue being a successful game designer on a major project with no consequences. What are the consequences, Anita? Because let me tell you, if the consequences for divisive opinions, on the internet are that nobody should ever work with you, no one will know your fucking name. I don't even disagree. I think a lot of the people who reacted negatively to Anita Sarkeesian's critique are absolute morons. I think viewing art and media through a feminist perspective and applying feminist principles to interpretations of art is not only valid, I'll go so far as to say it's an essential component of what we do. But you also have told some outrageous lies, been insanely antagonistic. You didn't let the work speak on its merits. In fact, the work was almost like the bait in the trap. And that's exactly how you've operated. But, you know, I've never made an Anita Sarkeesian video. I think all the people that tried to get rich off bashing Anita Sarkeesian were grifters too. But if the idea is you're not allowed to have a job for expressing an opinion that upsets people, then, darling, I don't know how to break the bad news to you, but nobody should be cutting you a check ever again. And you can go, but it's invalid, it's not real, it's not... No, listen. You're not always going to be the ones, I keep saying it. Be careful what rules you bring in when you're on top, because they're the same rules that will be used to fucking bash you on the way down. That's how it's always worked in history. People never learn this lesson. All the people saying Twitter should have better enforcement. Twitter should ban overt political organisations. Ha, look at the Trumpsters being banned. No, wait, you're banning Antifa now. No, we need Antifa to fight the very real fascism in America. You guys don't get it. You give corporations and governments that kind of power, they'll fuck you up every time. Then, this was mind-blowing, and it's a deleted tweet now, there was a union for workers in the sphere of the games industry advocating to get this guy fired. What is a union? Who gives a fuck, right? Fuck the workers if they got YouTube videos I don't like. Fuck them workers. We wonder how many workers have suffered because of this type of toxicity has been allowed to go unchecked. Organising isn't just about winning better pay or benefits. It's also about positively shaping workplace culture. Are you in the gaming industry looking to organise for the workplace where everyone can thrive? Hit us up. They even used it as a fucking advertising method. And again, you see the fantasy. You see how the smears and the lies degenerate to ridiculous extremes. So not only is he gone from being a guy who said opinions I don't like, to fully fledged member of the alt-right. Now we have to imagine he's harming people in the workplace. What? Like no one would pick that up. By the way, where's all your tweets about Riot and all these other big companies? Oh, that's right. You can't take them on, can you? But one guy at one company in a very small role out of a team of like 105 people. Yeah, we should fire him. Haven't you got bigger battles to fight? And of course, where do we end? Well, we're better than another old friend. Again, it's weird how these same names slither out, isn't it? When it's time to be, oh, I might be able to relevant. Remember me? Remember me? Somebody said something nasty about me 7 years ago, and I've never shut the fuck up about it. Remember me? So, of course, we have to end with Brianna Wu. A woman so dumb she thinks people want to take over the moon to drop rocks on foreign countries. Right? She comes out and goes, there is zero reason to believe this person has changed his views or regrets them. It's scary to imagine women in games reporting to him. How about you just don't imagine things then that scare you? How about that? Because that's all you're doing. It is imaginary. Not a single woman's come out and criticised him. Nobody's come out and criticised his behaviour. Company hasn't come out and criticised his behaviour. He just made YouTube videos that some morons on the internet don't like. It's scary to imagine a murderer breaking into my house and killing me in my sleep. Yeah, it is. Yeah, don't do it. It's probably never going to happen. What's wrong with you? It's so scary to make things up. That's your whole movement for 7 fucking years, by the way. Chasing imaginary, fictitious boogeymen just because they don't want to come into your fucking little treehouse. And fucking, you know, self-flagellate. So there it is. It's never changed. Games journalism has never changed. It never will change. While you have these plebs, you know, running the show and weak editors that are just like, well, as long as people are clicking. Fuck standards. Fuck ethics. It's a joke. The industry's worse now than it was when everyone jumped off about it. And it's just almost become like an irrelevant passing phase. The only problem you've got is when they go after someone as vehemently as this, and you write like 15, 16 articles across almost every major publication about a story that's in no way newsworthy. What then starts happening is if they do fire that guy, it just G's him up for the next time. Now, so far, the indications are he's not getting fired. And if he has it in writing that he's disclosed it and Warner Brothers said it was fine, they're on incredibly shaky ground. They'll at least have to pay him a chunk of change if they do fire him. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Like, some of that stuff was just from yesterday. So but it's just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, they're never going to learn the lesson. They're never going to grow up. They're never going to start doing real journalism. They're never going to take on, you know, the big figures in the community. They're going to be still poring over old tweets and old social media posts, except their own, which they're completely absolved of because they have grown as a person. No one else can grow as a person. He's not allowed to grow as a person. You know, Patrick Klepek, by the way, who made racist jokes and trivialized rape, he can grow as a person. This guy can't, though. He made videos. He made YouTube videos. He's serious. My stuff was just jokes among my friends, and even though I posted it publicly, I didn't know people. You know, the mental gymnastics these shithouses do to justify their own behaviour when they're just bullies with platforms, and that's all they are. They're not an original thought in their head, empty, vacuous hypocrites with no discernible talent. And I'm going to be loving it, because I'll tell you, that fan bite, another example, just burning through money. I hope you've gone and got all expensive mortgages. I hope you put down payments on houses. I'll see you all in the streets. I'll be cackling. I'll be fucking howling, because you don't deserve to be anywhere else. You don't deserve to be anywhere else. You've got zero respect for the business, zero respect for the craft, zero respect for the truth. And what? We're all supposed to bow and scrape just because you can go, well, but I am a good person. Fuck you all. Till you grow out of this shit, your industry will always be a joke. As I said, think about the stories that I've been talking about just on this stream. No one's bringing up, Chinese censorship in video games. No one's bringing up major development companies working with them. None of these losers are bringing up the insane Apple, Epic, now Valve fucking lawsuit that's been going on. They don't have the capacity to talk about these things intelligently, let alone report on them in a truthful and factual manner. They don't know where to look for the facts. They don't even sign up to websites that deliver you every court paper across America like I do, because you have to pay a fee for it. They don't do any of that. They don't care. They just wait for someone with a bad opinion, TM, and then fucking go after them and try and ruin their lives. That's all games journalism is. Or, I stuck a controller up my ass. What does it say about... What does it say about sexuality? I don't know, mate. It says you like sticking controllers up your ass to me. I mean, fucking hell. You can do it. Just don't need to fucking write 2,000 words about it, like. Right, I really need you to review The Division. But I'm angry about Tucker Carlson today. You're on a deadline. I implore you to write about games I have given you The Division to write about. The Division is like Tucker Carlson. No discipline. Like I said, they just don't respect it. They don't respect the job. They don't respect you. It's vile. Like, these people are pathetic. Anyone paying these people is an embarrassment.